Next talk is by Martina. She stole my name.
You want to cry about that the whole time now?
Yes.
Okay.
She came all the way from Karlsruhe to join us and tell us a little bit about Ivy. She will give us a general deep dive into the new part of Angular. Give a warm applause for her.
Thanks so much, Martin. Like that's good version of mine. Yeah, I'm Martina. I will give you now a talk about the Ivy engine. Actually, it's kind of a smaller version of the talk I will give at the NGDE. So I have here the organizers of the NGDE. It's more like they're observing me. Is she doing a good job, Martina? I hope she's doing like a couple of talks already before she's joining the conference. Yeah, so who am I? I'm working actually in Karlsruhe. It's somewhere in the south. I don't like the south that much. Actually, I love Berlin. Berlin's my favorite city. We have beer everywhere. Someday I will move here, I'm pretty sure, but yeah, this day might be far away. Yeah, I'm also a trainer at Angular.de. I'm doing workshops over there. Yeah, you can talk with Robin about that since he's the master of Angular.de. I'm also organizing ng-goals workshops. Who does not know what ng-goals is? You have the duty to come afterwards to me and we talk about that. And like creating one-day workshops with Angular, like introducing community tech. And I'm also like an organizer about the Angular Heidelberg meetup in the south, like basically what Martin is doing here in the north, but of course less awesome than what I'm doing here in the north. I'm sorry, I stopped that now. No, he's awesome. He's doing a great job.
King of the North.
What?
King of the North.
Yeah, yeah. I hope I'm not like Thursday, but anyway. Let's see. Then it will end up really bad for me. So, anyways, whenever there's a question, whatever, just reach out for me on Twitter. I feel free to contact me in every single point. What I will talk about today is why the hell do we need a new engine at all? Like there were already a couple of engines introduced. And how does it work? Like when we finally figured out how awesome Ivy is now, we want to know how it is actually like, how does it became that awesome? And then of course how we can use it. And like, unfortunately for you, but I love that there will be a lot of cat content inside.
Sorry.
Wow.
Damn it! Now the pointer is not working anymore, and nothing is working anymore. Yeah, there will be a lot of cat content inside. I don't know, let's see. Yeah, because I love cats, and that's the point. At least that thing we have in common, I guess, Martin. Yes, so why? Why the hell do we need a new engine? So to get to know that, yeah, take a photo, let's do it. Like, why do we need a new engine?
So.
Okay, I just skipped that away.
It used to work.
It was used to, but now even this is not working anymore. I'm a little bit, I don't know why my whole mouse is not working anymore. Every single time it's the same. When you try to trust technique. See, my mouse is not working at all anymore. Let's see. I'm not ready. Yeah, so in Angular 2 there was introduced like Angular 2 was a completely whole rewrite of AngularJS. You might heard it like now we introduced web components as well, a new engine, it's called a template engine. With Angular 4 there was introduced the ViewEngine and it's still there actually. And now finally in the end of May, awesome, their Ivy came inside Angular 8. It's still an opt-in, so but it finally hopefully will be released with Angular 9 then at some day when they release Angular 9. So what do you think internally is the most costliest resource on a web page nowadays?
JavaScript?
I mean, it's not HTML, it's not CSS, of course, it's JavaScript. But it's not only the bundle size itself, it's as well the whole parsing, like creating the abstract syntax tree and then the execution. If you know a whole, what V8 is actually doing in Chrome, like this recompilation, they're having a couple of compilers that optimizing and execution and optimizing again and then re-optimizing, de-optimizing it's called. It's really amazing what JavaScript actually does in our web browsers. So yeah, let's make it smaller. So we have a couple of numbers over here. So like nowadays, let's say a Hello World example with the ViewEngine, it was like 36 kilobytes. That was actually already pretty amazing, since I remember like my first Angular application with Angular 2, it was around 260 kilobytes. And it was still really big, so I was like, what the hell? I'm still trying to really reduce the size, really make it really small, but it's 260 kilobytes. That's way too much to, like for low-level network devices. That's really crazy. And I don't know if you heard about the Hello World cake threshold. It was like Brad Green on the NG conference said, okay guys, if you are able to create a bundle size of Ivy less than 10 kilobytes, I will buy cakes for everyone. So that was basically the Hello World cake threshold. What he didn't mention is like if he mean it like if it's minified or compressed, whatever. What we're talking about here, by the way, is the framework. Not like, I mean, for a Hello World example, you don't need a huge template or something like that. You're just talking about the framework, the ViewEngine, and then the Ivy itself. So they got it, they got the framework Angular itself, less than 10 kilobytes, and right now they created a compressed and minified Hello World example with just 2.7 kilobytes. This is pretty amazing.
Yes.
I think this is pretty amazing. I think that, so yeah, and then Brad fulfilled his promise and he bought cake for everyone and they were really happy about it. But they're still actually working on that. So now is the question, of course, how they can do it. But before that, we get another benefit. As I said, the bundle size is not the only benefit we can get out of Ivy. There's a faster compilation, and as well, it's easier to debug. So with this, I want to explain these three benefits on how Ivy is now doing that, like how the core team was now able to actually achieve this kind of goals. So let's talk about first the smaller bundle. I mean, before we dig into that, we shortly want to take a look how the ViewEngine is doing that right now. So whenever you have this, you have a CAD component, obviously you have a CAD component or Unicorn component, nothing else. You don't have a doc component, you have a CAD component. And then the ViewEngine behind it renders a so-called CAD component.js file and the CAD component.ngFactory.js file. What is the ngFactory file? Does someone already saw into these kind of files? Like this ngFactory file is actually just the representation of the template. Like the instruction, what the renderer has to do, what the compiler has to do in creating the template. Like, oh yeah, we have here some diffs, we have here a text node, we have some ng template, ng content injection inside the template. So actually, ViewEngine is creating two files out of one template component. So what they thought about, okay, we have to reduce that. So just cut this file off, you don't need it. So solution finished, we just reduced it by half. And everyone is like, yeah, but it's not like that easy, of course. But that basically is what they did. They said, okay, how can we maybe reduce the output of what the rendering engine is actually creating? So to get to know, to keep that in mind, we will now see how Ivy is now doing that. So basically, this is now the output of a compiled component, what actually combines this ngFactory file and the component.js file. And as you can see here, the whole template, what was back then in ViewEngine own ngFactory file, is now here inside this .js file. As well, they created something called ngComponentDef. Keep that in mind. I'll come back to that shortly. Because now we have like a whole object that actually describes the whole component itself, and it doesn't need another JavaScript file who actually tells us how to recreate a template and how to recreate all the elements inside the component. So, keeping that in mind, how do you make things smaller? Yeah, okay, you just remove some parts. But do you actually know that in Angular right now, in the View engine, there is a lot of code actually shipped and you don't use it. Like the Angular framework right now, the View engine ships a lot of code that isn't used. So why should it be served to the browser then? Did you know that? It's horrible. I mean, like you get 36 kilobytes of a framework, and you might just use 5 of this. Let's put it in numbers. You just use 5 kilobytes of this framework. So what it's actually used is called tree shaking. Everyone is familiar with tree shaking. Mm. Does someone not know what tree shaking is? Martin, you know nothing, Martin. Martin, no. So tree shaking is basically, he has to raise his hand. Tree shaking is basically a mechanism that eliminates dead code, that figures out in a somehow a static code analysis algorithm. Uglify, for example, they're using Uglify sometimes and other tools for just checking if functions are called or not. If they are called, fine, then I use them. If they're not called, I should just remove them and cut them off. I should just shake it off somehow. No, I will not bring up Taylor Swift now, but just like that. They just check the dead code, just to remove the dead code. So what has this now to do like with the View engine and Ivy and whatever? Yeah, the basic thing is View engine isn't tree shapeable. And all of us like, why is the View engine, why isn't it tree shapeable? That's unfortunately based on a design decision concept they made back then, that like, this is an example, View engine, we have a component, and here we see a generated code of a component, like of this component, the greeting component. We see here are some element definitions, like we have a div, and this div has a class, and class is a greeting attribute, and so on. And we have a text definition, hello world. So this is generated by the View engine. If I'm too fast, just say it. Sometimes I had already 2 beers, so yeah. Otherwise, I'm too nervous, but it's fine. So this is basically right now what's generated right now. So this is generated, and then when it comes to compilation and the runtime, it's actually like that. Like every single component has to go through this steps, like introduction steps of getting rendered. Like for every single view div that comes here inside, it has to go. It's like a switch case statement actually. Yeah, if this view definition has now some element definitions, then call the method element star. If it has some host listeners like for pipes, then yes, call the function listeners. And this is like an area of instruction, like a map, you can say that, and calling the functions. Yet this is quite fine, but I'm just using element def and text def. But every single component has to go through all these kind of steps for creating the template, for rendering the template. So that means during a static code analysis. What?
Analysis.
Thank you. Analysis. You cannot know, like no one can know at that moment if you need all this, if maybe all of the if statements are false at that moment, but in a static way you cannot know that. And that's the issue about the design decision about the View engine. So all the functions here will be compiled inside a bundle and shipped. But in the end, you don't use this three ones over here, you just use the element star. So, and the text. I did it here by the text def, of course. So, this creates a really huge bundle size, or even more bundle size in every single component, but for every single component. And this is, I actually don't know why they did that back then. But it was just a design decision. So now they thought about the first point of creating the Ivy engine, we want to make it tree shapeable. So that was the first goal. So what is the issue here? So the issue is actually that we're having a component, and then we're having the framework asking the component, do you have this function, do you have this function, do you have this feature, then I will call this function. So what they basically did is like the other way around. They did it like, the component is calling the functions of the framework. So they did it just the other way around, like not the framework is deciding what the component is doing, like in a huge switch case block or in a huge if-else statement. The component inside, now as I mentioned before, this template attribute inside the .js file, you remember? Mm-hmm. That's why I mentioned it. That sometimes it makes sense. What I mentioned before, yes, that's why inside this there are all those function calls. And now, of course, it's easy. Now, the static code analysis can actually decide which functions are called and which it can be just tree-shakeable and shake away. Shake it up, whatever. My English is really bad. I just figured it out right now. I really can't. Always when I'm giving a talk in English, it's like, oh God. Anyways. Yeah, so this is pretty amazing. You might not imagine what kind of impact that already has, but it has. Like, as we saw, it was 36 kilobytes to 2.7 kilobytes, and it's really amazing. That's awesome. Again. Yes, so now we cleared up the smaller benefit of Ivy. Now we're coming to the faster compilation. And that is like, of course, like having a small bundle size is really good for consumers of a website. But a faster compilation, I mean, like so many times we're sitting in front of the computer and like we're looking, or like we want to give a live demo. I skipped that part today, but we want to do a live demo and then we npm start, and then it's like, and then we wait for a couple of minutes. Yeah, but with Ivy we don't have to do that anymore in channeling. How does it do that? It's basically in the ViewEngine, it's like they are having so many dependencies, like already called, inside the generated ViewEngine code. But with Ivy, I will show an example, and it makes more sense what I'm saying right now. But with Ivy, it's just every single component, what is inside, what's written down inside a component, it just only requires local information. That means when I'm trying to compile a component that has an ngIf, for example, inside, I don't care if this ngIf maybe needs an injector or another dependency. All I need inside this component is the information that, okay, it uses an ngIf. It uses an ngIf. This is called locality principle. Why is this so awesome? Because in the ViewEngine, it's a different way. Right now, this is again a code. This is created by the ViewEngine, and as you can see here, like as I said, we have here the ngIf. And here inside the brackets, what do you think it is? Any guesses?
The resource dependencies?
Of what exactly?
Of the ngIf. Of the ngIf.
It's like the constructor actually of the ngIf. It's like the dependencies of the ngIf.
Yeah.
But do we need that at that moment? I mean, it's a component. All I need to know if this component is we need an ngIf. So this whole thing, the issue is what? Okay, ngIf is maybe somehow a bad example because hopefully ngIf the constructor doesn't change. Hopefully. But, I mean, it doesn't change that much. But it's just a simple example. Maybe we write our own structural directive. What if the constructor of our own written structural directive is changed? Then all the components, in all the components, we're using our own structural directive. The constructor is written down here, and it has to recompile. But I don't care, actually, as a component, I shouldn't care about that. And that's basically what Ivy is doing now. Like, Ivy is just saying, okay, yeah, here is the ngIf. Like, this is now the, as you can see at the header, this is the Ivy compiled code. You don't have to write that, by the way, just in generally. You don't have to, but just like in generally, This means internally if it's the first time the component is rendering, then we have an element start and then the text. And of course, when it's the second time, we maybe just need a string interpolation just to generally what this whole big thing. Because when you look at the first time, maybe it's a little bit overwhelming. I mean, at least it was for me. It was like, oh my gosh. But yeah. So basically, we just have here the statement of the ngIf, and that's it. So we have all informations of compiling the component locally, right there. And for the ngIf, we have our own ng directory ref that now has the information about which dependencies it has to inject. I mean, you could quite think, yeah, but this is so easy. Why didn't it do before? Yeah, I asked myself the question a lot of times, especially for the tree shaking. It was like, okay, what is actually going on? But that means as well that we have a faster compilation. Why? We just change something on our code base, like a component, and we don't have to recompile material. Or we like Angular material. We don't have to recompile structural directives. We don't have to recompile like and all the whole application. As well, additionally to that awesome thing, I'm a little bit euphoric about it, I'm sorry. Additionally to that awesome thing, actually, Iris writes now some kind of a stable API that lets you ship already IoT compiled packages inside your Angular application. So it's not like you have to press npm start and every single thing is compiled at that time. You can just have, you don't need, it's called global compilation, like when you have to compile all the Angular material things at once directly. Like you just can even import already compiled modules, and that's pretty awesome. Actually, Martin, I hope did you really understand what I'm actually talking about? It's really, it's really amazing. I mean,
It sounds like jar.
What
It sounds like jar.
A jar? No. That's jar is something like Java, and we don't want to put it out here now.
We spent half an hour talking about
no language blaming. No language blaming.
No, it was just a trend. I just said it's just not mentioned here because we're talking about JavaScript and not Java in general. Yeah.
JavaScript is like Java, right?
What again?
JavaScript is like Java, right?
Yeah, basically yes. Somehow.
And we also use jumps.
Exactly. So modules are already like in the AOT format. I think I have actually even my own timer over here because I thought
awesome.
like, oh yes. I want to give a good impression as a speaker, you know. All good. So easier to debug. Actually, I wanted to prepare a little demo, but in half an hour it's really short time, so I will just give you some short points. But if you join Angular German conference, you will get an awesome live demo about how it's easier to debug with Ivy. Internally, the whole cleaner API thing makes it really easy to debug the Angular component, since you have the functions directly. You have one component. You have an ng component definition, and there's like written down every single function. And you can so easily step through it. You can even actually set in breakpoints inside the template and now really follow step by step which functions are called and which steps are taken in actually create. Yes, this is so amazing. Exactly. I just need one person to approve, so it's awesome. Yeah, so it's really amazing. Like in my sense, it's really, really amazing. Yeah, so it's definitely, since it's like it has a clear interface, a clear API right now in calling the functions of each other, and that's why it's pretty easy to debug that. So how can we, I mean, like, I'm pretty sure I introduced it so good to you that you now think, oh God, I want to go home now and I really want to use it. I really immediately, I don't want to use anything else in Ivy. Yeah, so let's take a step back a little bit. So it's opt-in Angular 8. Angular 8 was now released, the major version, in 31st of May, 30 or 31st of May, end of
last
May.
week.
Yeah, last week finally it was there, and but it's like used as an opt-in. What does it mean? If when you're creating an app, you have to set a flag like -- enable Ivy. This creates inside your tsconfig like a short entry like p enable Ivy true. That means generally, okay, yes, this I want to compile this project now with Ivy, and then of course you just build it, and then you can see how awesome it actually is. So what I meant here, yes, there's the Angular compiler options and enable Ivy true. The thing is, I know that everyone is thinking right now, okay, now opt-in, I shouldn't use it. But the community, the whole Angular core team is actually working right now on Ivy. So you all are actually the test persons right now of making Ivy good. Maybe you're always thinking about, oh, I may be too scared to, I don't know how to contribute over there. But each issue that is occurring to you, and you may be opened at the Ivy compiler on GitHub, is a contribution and a good contribution, because just because of that, they can make Ivy really stable and really good, like for the version 9 then. They planned to have Ivy now shipped in version 9 stable. Did they already say something about a release date? Version 9?
There's no kind of fixed yet.
But what?
There's a website at the Angular GitHub that talks about all the releases. I think it's somewhere fall or something like that. Not date
Fall,
yet.
yeah, right. Yeah,
Fall,
it's
something like that.
Basically every 6 months.
Every 6 months.
Every 6 months.
Yeah, so Ivy is pretty awesome in my sense, because it reduces the bundle size really significantly, and we all can help to improve Ivy and just using it. Of course there will be issues, but we can help the Angular core team, and the Angular core team is there's so many awesome persons. They're really asking for help. They're really reaching out for the community. That's why meetups like this is really great and awesome, actually. And as I said, compiled really first, because it recompiles just the steps, just the code is actually changed. Yeah. So maybe I rushed a little bit through, but any questions so far? But okay, first of that, yes, sorry. If you want more. Of course, there is a raffle, and maybe in the end, just join me in there. I'm pretty sure a lot of better speakers than I am at the conference. Just join the workshop of Jan, and it's the first Angular conference ever in Germany. I'm pretty sure it's really amazing, and I'm really excited to go there. So maybe grab a ticket. There's still a lot of tickets. I hope I see a couple of persons over there. Thank you, and do you have questions? Back to Brent.
Yeah, so I actually have two questions. The first is, what's the current status of Ivy? Is like alpha, beta? I mean, I understand that we can opt in, but like, how far is ready?
Pretty stable.
I mean, I would call it stable, definitely. I would call it stable.
So basically, kind of release candidate, right?
Yes, exactly. That right now, I mean, it's opt-in means stable, but now they have to test run it on real huge enterprise systems.
Mm-hmm.
That's why what I said, we have to use it right now, and then ViewEngine will be removed in version 9, and then it's Ivy.
Mm-hmm.
But to make it really like that, then there are not that much issues maybe occurring. We have to now use it with the opt-in.
Mm-hmm. And the second question, so like as far as I understood, like in the Hello World, this bundle is so small because there are basically no pipes, no directives in the bundle. In the right?
Yeah.
In the normal application with like ngIf, ngFor, with pipes, let's say middle size, what's the bundle size will be?
I don't have right now really numbers in my head, but it would be around. I heard like there was a huge enterprise. There was one, I remember, there was a huge enterprise application. It was with the ViewEngine. It was actually around 150, and then they ported it somehow to Ivy, and then it was actually 70 kilobytes.
Oh.
Like that was almost half of that, yeah. But with the same, like not the pipes, and they use pipes and directives a lot, yeah.
We tried it out at one of our projects, and we got also roughly 30%.
Yes, yes.
That's too
So if I'm opting in, so is there anything to be aware of when I want to opt out again? So maybe there's an issue occurring in a project and I really want to get rid of it quickly because the project has to be released. Is there an issue? Are there risks when I opt in?
Not as far as I know.
Okay, so you can really just safely try it out.
Yes, exactly. You can opt in and just remove it again, like directly. I actually did it once, but I did it with the own private project, so not a huge enterprise project. Maybe, but I'm not as far as I know.
Okay,
yeah?
cool.
So you will need to update some dependencies. So maybe there, so when you upgrade to Ivy or Angular 8, you have to upgrade to TypeScript 3.4 and the core. So maybe that will crash something.
Okay, but I know this upfront, so it's not like when I encounter an issue in a month, I can just opt out again and I'm fine.
That's the thing that's also really awesome about it's no breaking change for the user. Also.
Yeah.
Exactly backwards compatibility.
It's just a compiler change with nothing that can happen.
I actually had
There was a good talk about browser stack testing. I think if you use browser stack testing after enabling Ivy, you
We'll find all your issues up front.
Yeah, actually I had a point over there, backwards compatibility, but I didn't say a lot about that, but the main goal about having Ivy as an opt-in was the backwards compatibility as well, with all of the tools as well, not just the framework itself, but all of the tools they have, and there are a lot right now. Yeah, and another question?
Two more questions and then we would move on.
And what about like the library? So if my library was compiled under Angular 7, but my application like under the Ivy, will the application be possible to use that library?
Yes.
So
You know, if you have breaking changes, if you use view charts in your library.
Without view chart, I mean, like generally Ivy doesn't prevent to use the lower version of libraries, right?
Yes.
Because it's kind of still compiled.
Yes. And there was a last question, and then maybe we should skip. Sorry,
we
just
can
came
have
to me
discussions
then
afterwards. I just don't want.
Yes.
Basically, because you emphasized on creating a new app with Ivy. When I have my existing Angular 7 app and I migrate it to 8 and I migrate my libraries to 8 and everything is fine, then I can just go ahead in my tsconfig and add the enable Ivy and everything works fine. And I'm greeted with like 30% less build.
Yes.
Sounds like magic.
No.
Even more for me.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like, that's the thing. Just one last sentence. I'm sorry. Just try it out. I'm pretty sure there will be somewhere in this world, in the last corner of this world, one single little bitty itsy library that's completely breaking everything. But that's it. And just, I mean, of course, there's always something that's.
It depends on your life now.
Yes. So that's it. So thank you so much. I really like it. There was so much question and you're so much interested in it. And I'm really excited now for the next talk because you will dig a little bit deeper now in the starting. I'm really excited about that. So thank you so much. And